Hi, this is DT Bonnie from Lavinia World, and I thought we would create some celebrating scene today. I'm using some stamps that you might not have thought to use. So I'm going to tell you really quickly the stamps, and then we're going to get going. So to create the fireworks, I decided to use the Dandelion stamps, and that is Fairy Dandelions, LAV 373, and I use just this one out of this package set, and this is LAV 166 Dandelions. I also use the new little houses, and they are called Small Dwellings, and it's LAV 640. And I'm also going to be using the stars, and there's so many different stars, and you could probably use any of them, but the one that I used on this one is LAV 212 Stars 2 Mini. So I started out my paper with a 6x6 this time, and I'm using a lot of Distress Oxide ink for this project. So the first thing I am going to be using is Tumbled glass, and I am going to be using my blending brushes, and like I usually start with, I am going to be spraying this slightly with my mister and putting some glue at the top. Now one thing I want to tell you is whatever color you use to begin with is the color your fireworks will be. If you want some really different fireworks, you can do all different colors up here, and you'll see what I mean as we get going with this project. But this part right here will be whatever color you want your fireworks to be. It does make a difference as you go. You know what I forgot to do is I need to put a piece of paper underneath that. There we go. Didn't really mean to get that ink on my mat. But make sure you have it pretty saturated, not terribly, but this is what, like I said, what your fireworks will be, and you really do want to have a nice, more of a solid base. So we make sure we get that done. And then the bottom part, let me show you the picture again. The bottom part will be kind of like the lake. And so I'm going to be using a purple at the bottom, and then we'll be adding the colors. And you go down as far as what you want your horizon houses to be stamped. So if you want them stamped at a different level, you put your ink in a different space. All right, so we've got the blue. Now we're going to go ahead and do the Wilted Violet. I'm going to go ahead and keep this out for when I need it later. And this is, like I said, Wilted Violet. And I'm going to be using a different brush. And again, I'm going to be misting my blending brush. This is a little bit darker. And I'm just going to be wiping that. You can see it's definitely darker, but when you get done, you have covered it up quite a bit. And it doesn't really have to be a perfect line. It just depends on how you want to do it. If you like to do perfect, do perfect. But this is how you start. You just need that. And it doesn't really matter if it doesn't blend in for this color up here, because as we add things, it'll work. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is set up my stamping, because the next thing that will be happening is stamping. Okay. So just get that done first, let that dry just a little bit. I think I am going to even this out a little bit up here. A little bit more straight and not such a, here we go. Okay. Okay, so I'm all set up to do some stamping, and again I wanted to remind you that all of the products that I'm using today are available at the Lavinia World Store, and I have them all listed down in the description. So you have a direct link and you can find them really quickly. So the next thing I'm going to do is stamp the, I can't remember what the name of these, the little houses, they are called small dwellings. I'm stamping each of the small dwellings across this line, and with VersaFine Clear Nocturne. And I'm going to just stamp so many of them at a time. And I need to get my paper to wipe off that excess. It always seems to get a little bit of ink on the side. And then I'm going to heat emboss them with a clear embossing powder, because I'm going to be inking over them, and the best way to wipe off the ink is to use clear embossing powder. Okay, so that's our first one, and like I said, I'm just going to line these up and go straight across. But I'll show you the first 3 and how I did that, and then I'll do the rest of them off screen. So just line those up, and then I do so many, and then I heat emboss them, and then I stop, and then I do some more stamping. I don't want my ink to dry out, and VersaFine Clear really waits for quite a while before it dries out. Okay, these are the cutest little houses, and they make a wonderful background. Even a skyline of some sort, a fairy skyline. Want a little bit more ink on that one. Okay, and then take that one off, put the next one on. And you could put these as close as you want or as far apart as you want, however you want to do that. I tend to stick to my fingers when I first get them. You can see how it's sticking and it's not cooperating. There we go. Okay. Now if you wanted to draw a line across that too, a very light pencil line to line up your houses, you can do that. A little bit of ink off. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them, and then I'll be right back to show you what it looks like. Okay, so I have those all stamped, and you can see there's a little bit of a glare, so that's what prevents the ink from really getting all over it. I can wipe it back off from that. So the next step is kind of fun. What we do is I just basically take the dandelion stamps and place those down where I would like to have them be. And the thing that's kind of nice about these stems, if you want to have it look like it's shooting up, you can also do that too. But I can't do it until I get that attached to this plastic and then arrange it. So then you just take this plastic and arrange it a little bit to the way that you want that to go. And the other thing is, keep in mind when you go to stamp that, you are trying not to get the ink down here below this area. What I use for this is a VersaMark watermark, yeah, it's watermark stamp, whatever, VersaMark. So it just basically is clear. It's a clear ink. And like I said, I'm just going to be stamping this top part. And you can't hardly see it when you stamp it. Make sure that's down. I'm wiping that little bit off right there with my finger and stamping that. Now I'm not really sure how long the VersaMark really stays wet, so I will probably every time I stamp them, I am going to heat emboss them. I think I'm going to try to do a couple of this one. Yeah, that one's good. I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to heat emboss it. Same concept. I can see where that is, and I'm going to be putting that one right here. You can put them wherever you want. Both of these, the cards that I've done are going to be different because nothing is ever identically the same. I'm going to rearrange that one again. And that, I think I'm going to put that just a little bit higher because it's going to touch that house, top of the house. We'll check that again. A little bit higher. So it is a little bit more fussy when you go to do them. That's quite a bit higher. Okay, let's try that. Yep, that's where I want it. All right, and I just stamp that again. And make sure that I don't have the ink down here. And now I'm going to use clear embossing powder. And wherever I'm stamping is what's going to stay blue. Okay. I'll go ahead and do that and show you how that turned out. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how that turns out so you can just you can see them when you're doing it. It's a little bit easier to see it for real, but you can see how that has stamped and you can see where they are. So I'm going to continue to stamp the various ones on there so that you can see how you can put them in different places. Those are my two major big ones that I wanted to do. I did the big ones first and then I go down to the next one, which is the next one from that set, and just set that up wherever I want it. And in this case, I'm just going to go here. It's different from my other one, like I said. And in this case, I don't know that I'm going to really add too much of that end to it, but if it shows up, it's fine because it's in the right place going down. Same concept, and it's really good to do some of them so you can see them and then emboss them, and then come back and do your next set. That way you can see where things are a little bit better. And even if they overlap, it's really not a big deal because they do overlap in the sky. All right. And then I'm going to put one up here completely the other way around, so I don't need to worry about that at all. Okay. And then the last one that I use is from the other set. It's the smallest one of the three. Make sure that's not there. And like I said, you can just plan your placement or just do whatever, and you can use your acrylic samples that they come with to see where you want to line them up to. So I'm going to do two more. I'm going to do one here and then probably one up here. Again. And I'm going to do one more. I'm going to have to move that piece of tape. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and bring that over and get the clear embossing powder on them and heat emboss them. Okay, now for some a little bit magical fun. We're going for this look, remember, and this is where we're at right now. So to get that look, we need to use some more Distress Oxide. And the lightest one that I'm going to use is Spun Sugar. And that is going to go towards the horizon. And I'm going to go ahead and use a different brush, blending brush that is clean. And I am just going to go over this horizon. And I'm going to be going right over those houses just like I told you, because I can wipe back everything I'm putting on the houses because they have been that clear embossed. It's kind of like a protection for them. So that'll work out fine. But to really see the fireworks, you need something, in this case, because I used a lighter color, I need a darker color for the fireworks to really show up well. So we'll gradually get a little bit darker. So again, that was Spun Sugar. The next color up that I'm going to use is Worn Lipstick. And I'm not going to be using a lot of that. I'm going to use the same brush. And I'm not going to use a lot because for the most part my fireworks are there. And I really want them to have more of the dark. And like I said, it makes a difference every time depending on where I put my fireworks and how much I'm going to use of these other colors. So I'm going to try a little bit of the picked raspberry, same brush, and just add just a tiny bit to that horizon. Okay, now I'm going to be going to my blues. And the first one I'm going to use is the Faded Jeans. I'm going to get another brush. And I'm going to start adding that Faded Jeans. And you can see that those fireworks are just starting to pop right now because I'm using a little bit darker color. Okay, the next color up from that is, yeah, I think I used the chipped Sapphire. And you can really see them now. So you can see like whatever color you put in the background is what your fireworks are going to be. And if you get really particular, you know, really lay that out, you can have all different color fireworks. And at the very end, I go around the whole entire top with Distress Ink, but not the Oxide, black Soot. Because black Soot, just a regular distressed ink, is a darker black than the Oxide. And I might add another blue, but for right now we're going to go with this, and then we'll add it as we go. All right, so that's pretty much the night sky so far. I think I'm going to add a little bit to the side. Okay, I'm not going to wipe anything back yet. I'm going to wait till I get this all together. All right, so I'm going to set up to do the bottom part now. Okay, so I got a piece of my paper that I usually use to do when I do mountains and when I do hills and whatever, and I'm using the back side of just a straight edge, and I'm using black, just I'm using Distress Oxide for this one, Black Soot, and I just want just a little bit of a base for these houses, dwellings. And that's going to change a little bit as we go, but this is the next step. Okay, so that's just so that it kind of like grounds them so they have a space. Looks like they're sitting on something. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm pulling out blue print sketch, and I need to make my water. And to do that, I am going to be using this paper that I've torn, and go ahead and add that to the top. I want to keep the purple still in there. It gives it a highlight, and in some places I'm not going to do as heavy, so it looks like there's a little bit more of a reflection going through the water. Okay, flip that around, give me a different ripple effect. Let's get this way. And we'll do one more. Looks like I'm getting my fingernails in that too. All right, and I get that very bottom. And I'm just going to come back over the whole thing, just kind of like soften it all out. And that's going to be our water for the bottom. And then I am going to add a little bit more of the chipped sapphire to the bottom. It's a little bit darker than the blueprint sketch. And I'm just going to add it just to darken the whole area. Okay, now we're going to get all set up for doing some reflection, and I'm going to get that set up for that right now. Okay, so for this next step, I'm sitting down, and I'm getting this a little bit closer. So in order to make the reflection for the houses there, what I do is I do use the Distress Oxide Black Soot, and I smush that on top of my working mat. And then I spray it with just a tad bit of water because it is more of a gray than a black. So I want the reflection in the water of each of these houses. Now remember, what I've already got here is water-based. So as I come through, it's going to look like it's going to take some of that ink away too from underneath. But I'm trying to paint the opposite of what is up above, so. And you don't need a lot for the reflection either, just a little bit. And I'm just wiggling that back and forth, and like I said, not too much water because it's water-based underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for each one. And if I feel like it's fading out, I want to add just a tad bit more water, but still try to get not as much water from the whole area when I paint. And you can see it really shouldn't be too wet. And I just wiggle that back and forth. It depends on the brush you use, I'm sure. And I'm leaving a little bit of space underneath all of them because I'm going to highlight that also with some ink. So I think you can see what I'm doing there. It doesn't take very long, really. Okay. Almost finished. Okay, so that is our reflection. And then the next thing I do is I pull out milled lavender. It is the closest thing to using white for Distress Oxide, because I've not been able to find the picket fence Distress ink. So I'm going to use a different brush because that's got black on it. I'm going to smush this also on my work surface, and I'm going to spray it with just a little bit of water. And I want just a little bit of a highlight underneath each of these houses. So that kind of like separates it. Even though we did that horizon earlier, I just want to be able to highlight that just a little bit more. And you can see how this really looks more like a white. It does kind of fade in because, again, it's a water-based, and it kind of blends into the ink behind. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect because really, honestly, the bottom, the horizon like this isn't really perfect. But it just helps to highlight it a little bit. The next thing I want to do is I wanted a little bit more texture to my water. So that's what I'm going to do for that. I want just a little bit more texture for my water down below. And so what I decided, there was a couple things I wanted to do, but it didn't work out. So I tried this, and that is I'm using just water, and I'm getting my fan brush wet very lightly. And I'll lift this up just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to wave this through the water, and it's going to pull out some of the ink. Get it wet again. And it's just going to give me a little bit of texture there. And I think I want a little bit more. It's like the water is like an eraser. So that's the look I'm going to go for the bottom. And then the only thing two things that are left is I need to use some water to take away the ink on top of my stamping. But I also did some stamping of the stars. And what I used for that, so that it would show up, is I'm using the Hero Arts Unicorn White because the milled lavender did not it's soaked in, and I needed something that didn't soak into the ink. So this one is very juicy, so I have to lightly touch whatever. So just randomly put those around. I'm gonna have to pull my picture back up. There we go. Just randomly dot those. And I'm gonna also heat emboss those, but I'm going to heat emboss those with a white embossing powder. I need to get a fine white embossing powder. What I have currently is a little bit more chunky, so it doesn't give the definition I want. So that's what we're going to do for that. I'm going to go ahead and emboss those and show you what that looks like. Okay, before I heat emboss the stars, I've got the embossing powder on them. I wanted to show you how I take back that ink by using water and a Q-tip. I just go over that so you can see how it takes the ink right off, what I don't want, and brings it back to more of the glossy. And all I do is if my ink or my water starts running out, I just spray my Q-tip and keep removing the ink I don't want on the houses. So that's what I do. Okay, so our very last step is I have this tiny Distress Ink Black Soot, like I told you. That was not the Oxide version, but the regular version, and I'm just going to go around the edges and add some black. And again, I can wipe back those stars that I'm just covering up by using the Q-tip method, or I can use a very little, I can use a paper towel very lightly. And I'll do that for the fireworks too. I'll take that back so it's still bright. This just tends to, I don't know how to say it, to me, by having this edge on it, it just tends to ground it a little bit better. Okay, so that's going to be our finished look. I think I'm gonna use this one brush to kind of take a little bit, blend that in. Just a plain old brush. Kind of take some of that back. Because this didn't have much, didn't have much of anything on it, and so it's just kind of taking that excess back. So that's our look, and it's going to be I'm going to put that on a card base. I just want to thank you for stopping by, and to remind you that all of the products that I use is in the description below from Lavinia World store. And I hope that you can, if you haven't already subscribed, if you could subscribe, if you could like this. And I also would like to remind you about the Facebook group called Anything Lavinia, where you can come and share your cards and your projects with Lavinia stamps on them, and any Lavinia product. Just let us know what you've used, and stop by again. Thanks so much.